Vigilante 8 rolled off the production line and fell onto the original PlayStation back in 1998, and was the 635th car combat game released that year. Well, not really, but it totally felt like it at that point. By the time 1998 rolled around, the car combat genre was in full swing, and Vigilante 8 decided it wanted to get into the action as well. Developed by Luxoflux and published by Activision, Vigilante 8 needed to bring a hell of a lot more to the party than just shooting at other cars to get anyone's interest. So does Vigilante 8 push the genre forward at all, or does it just continue treading water along with a dozen or so other car combat games released that year? Well, squeeze into your favorite bell-bottom jeans, because we're about to get all weird and greasy with Vigilante 8. Right off the bat, you'll notice that Vigilante 8 tries to differentiate itself in the style department by basing its characters and cars and setting in the 70s, instead of the tried and true post-apocalyptic setting that so many other car combat games were using. Vigilante 8 goes out of its way to throw just about every bad 70s B-movie stereotype you can think of into the game, and most of it is laughably bad. Thankfully, the game isn't trying to take itself seriously in the least, so don't feel bad about laughing too hard at a character with a giant beehive haircut that's half woman, half robot, or a fat guy that rolls around in an old caravan truck that shoots bees at you. Yes, bees. At the very least, Vigilante 8 gets points for its crazy characters and unique setting. Sadly, things start getting a lot more familiar from here on out. While a cool setting and ridiculous characters will get your attention immediately, the rest of the game settles into the tried and true car combat formula as soon as you press the start button. While those cool 70s vehicles sure look neato, they all essentially conform to the same blueprint that Twisted Metal started years ago. Your smaller cars are of course faster, but take more damage. Bigger vehicles are slower. You know what, seriously, if you watched the Twisted Metal 2 video, you'd know how this works. If not, then you should check that video out, because I'd literally just be repeating myself here. So instead of going over the basics of car combat games yet again, let's check out what Vigilante 8 does that actually sets itself apart from the crowd. Just like Twisted Metal, your car starts off with an unlimited machine gun to fire aimlessly with, but that's it. Everything else has to be picked up around the map. You get your standard assortment of missiles, mines, and other stuff to shoot people with, though you definitely don't get the selection of weapons here that you have in other car combat games. Vigilante 8 only offers up a total of 5 weapon pickups, so you'll find yourself picking up the same weapons over and over again throughout each match, and that gets really repetitive. Actually, you know what, that wouldn't be so bad if each weapon was cool and unique to use, but pretty much everything you pick up does the same thing. 3 of the 5 weapons just fire off in front of you, homing onto enemies without any effort from you other than just making sure an enemy's somewhere on the screen. This leads to confrontations that basically boil down to being battles of attrition, rather than the various strategies that you had to use when you were playing something like Twisted Metal 2 due to just how different each weapon was. At least one cool thing Vigilante 8 does though is that it actually shows your weapon pickups on your car. So if you pick up a missile launcher, it'll actually attach itself to the side of your vehicle. Kind of a neat little touch, and it actually helps to let you know which weapons you have available at a glance, instead of just endlessly cycling through weapon icons on some other part of the screen. Each car also comes with the ability to fire off a special weapon, but unlike other games, doesn't actually come equipped by default. Just like other weapon pickups in Vigilante 8, you'll need to actually find a box containing your special weapon before you can use it. It's a neat little idea that makes you compete with other cars for it, instead of knowing it'll be available if you can just avoid enemies long enough for it to recharge. One area where Vigilante 8 really tries to separate itself from the pack are its car physics. Unlike the super twitchy, fast handling of something like Twisted Metal, Vigilante 8 goes for more realistic car handling. You definitely can't whip your car around in Vigilante 8 like you can in most other car combat games. Here, each car feels fairly heavy, requiring more nuanced driving to line yourself up for shots, or even just driving around the maps. Each car even has its own suspension and weight, which also affects handling as well. That actually kind of sounds neat in theory, but in practice, Vigilante 8's handling feels too slow and unresponsive for the type of action that it's constantly throwing at you. It's not uncommon to spend most of your fights just trying to maneuver yourself into position, and then dumping everything you've got available at the other car before you're forced to slowly turn around and line yourself up all over again. It makes even the fastest cars feel slow and unresponsive at times, especially if you're getting slammed around by other cars. It's definitely a cool idea, but overall just kinda comes off more frustrating than fun most of the time. Beyond all that, Vigilante 8 has a pretty good selection of stages to wreak havoc in as well. Though most are relegated to desert or industrial type locations, they certainly do a great job of looking brown most of the time. Some stages do mix up the locations a bit here and there, even if they do feature an eye-watering amount of over-the-top lens flare that can actually make it hard to see sometimes. Seriously, look at this shit. What is even happening here? Nothing has ever looked like this. It's like someone jizzed all over the screen. At any rate, at least each stage feels unique. Not to mention that just about everything you see is also fully destructible, so you can leave a pretty impressive path of destruction in your wake. You also get the standard assortment of stage secrets and hazards, making it decently fun to explore each stage as best you can to find some cool power-ups and stage interactions. Overall, I've got almost no complaints in the stage department, besides that awful lens flare, and they're actually probably my favorite thing about the entire game. When Vigilante 8 was originally released, it was met more with groans than honest excitement. By that time, everyone had kind of seen everything that car combat games had to offer, and Vigilante 8 didn't offer up enough to truly make it stand out, even if it did sell well enough to see a sequel come out a year later. Sadly, Vigilante 8 just never generated the excitement to push it beyond being yet another car combat game in an ocean of similar titles. While the setting and characters and car handling felt unique from other games in the genre, those things didn't actually make the game any more fun, and the handling actually hurt it more than it helped. Vigilante 8 isn't a terrible game by any means, it's just meh. There are way better car combat games to play, and nothing stands out enough for me to really recommend it to anyone checking it out now. But if you're not at all normal and are fiending for some sort of car combat action set in a 70s B-movie world, then by all means check Vigilante 8 out. It can be mindless fun for a bit, and it's at least as good or better than those other 635 car combat games released in 1998.